You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject that I have coming up for you is Chrigel Glanzman. He's the fella at the centre of Swiss folk metal titans, Eluveitie. The reason for the conversation is twofold. The band have a stunning new album that'll be released fairly soon. Fairly soon meaning not too far away from the 28th of February when I am rating this particular introduction. The album's called Ategnatos. I've probably mispronounced that there. We do get to the correct pronunciation through the conversation. And also, they're coming to Australia. I'll read out some dates. They're playing, they're all in May. They're playing in Adelaide on the 15th at the Gov. On the 16th, they're playing in Sydney at the Manning Bar. The 17th, they're playing Brizzy at the Zoo. The 18th, they're playing Melbourne at the Croxton Band Room. And finally, Perth, you get a show at the Rosemount on the 19th. So here he is, Chrigel Glanzman. Hello, mate. How you going?
Hello, Andrew. I'm terribly sorry I'm late. It's
all good.
This thing just happened. I actually believed that I just did the interview with you, but I didn't. The thing is, at 10:30. I would have had the next interview for an Australian magazine with a person who is also called Andrew. And we were just chatting, and like a minute later, this other Andrew, he was like half an hour too early. He just called me, and actually I thought it was you. And now I just noticed, damn, this was a different Andrew.
No, that's okay. Yeah, John.
Sorry.
No, that's no dramas at all. You're actually a popular man because John was trying to fit in a lot of people because apparently a lot of people actually wanted to have a chat to you. So I'm going to watch Jordan Peterson's in town. So I'm watching Jordan Peterson tomorrow night. So I couldn't take advantage of having a chat tomorrow night. I had to.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's no dramas, mate.
If you still have some time now, like.
Yeah, no, it's all good, mate. How much time have we got?
Well, now actually a lot because, as I said, like this other Andrew.
Okay, sweet.
Andrew Massey, I think it was called. He was supposed to call like in 10 minutes, but now this interview is already done, so we have like time until 11, I think.
Shit, sweet. All right. Well, let's do it, man. Actually, you probably remember, or you might not. God, how many journalists or indie journalists do you speak to? But we had a chat about a year and a half ago, I think it was. Thereabouts, we spoke about Evocation 2 Pantheon before that was released, and I think that's a superb album. I hadn't heard anything like that.
Thank you.
Because at the time, I wasn't quite, when I say the folk metal genre or tag that you guys get loosely associated with, I didn't know much about it, and it's not really my bag, but I really do like you guys, and you've upped the ante again, and I'm going to mispronounce the I'm going to say it wrong, okay? The name of your 2019 album. So here I go. It's Ategnatos. Is that close?
Yeah, very much, actually. The only thing is that in Gaulish language, the G is pronounced as a so it's actually Ategnatos.
Okay.
But yeah, you've been very close, actually.
Okay, rightio. Well, I've been listening to it a lot. And as I say, I think you've upped the ante again on Evocation 2 Pantheon, which is extraordinary, really, because you've been at the centre of the band since the band started, I understand, and you've had a cast of musicians come and go, but the quality has just always been on the improve for you. So that's going to be my first question to you. What's the secret? Because a lot of bands, to be honest with you, the quality tends to decline the further into their career they go. Now, I'll name a band, Trivium. That's a good example. Now, not dissing Matt Heafy and the guys in Trivium at all, and Paolo Grigoletto, I think his surname is the bassist, because they're extraordinary musicians, but I really feel that over the last decade or so, the quality of their music has suffered, I think, because they've had drummer issues and the like. But you've had a whole cast of musicians come and go, mate. So finally, after all that, Chrigel, I'll hand it over to you. How have you done it?
Well, honestly, I'm happy if you perceive it that way. But also, honestly, I absolutely do not know. Like, I mean, I wouldn't know what to say here because I really, really do not think about questions like that. Or, I mean, none of us does. So, yeah, we just always just kind of, followed, like, our gut feeling and did what we want to do. And that hasn't changed.
But you know what I'm saying,
Like,
don't you? Like when bands have like Cradle of Filth again, another example. I think the musicians that are in Cradle of Filth now, I think, are extraordinary. I've had conversations with them and really like what they're doing. Richard, the guitarist over there, is doing wonderful things. But there was a period there where Cradle's output wasn't that crash hot, and even diehard fans would acknowledge that. But not with you, and the broader Eluveitie pantheon, because you've managed to craft music that withstands the test of time, but with different musicians. And I guess that's my point. So, mate, you tapped into something pretty good there, and I think and I remember our conversation last time. You struck me as a very upbeat and very positive person, and I think that's probably part of the secret because you attract musicians who want to be in that environment, so therefore they work hard. Does that sound about right?
yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think that kind of is what being a band is about. I mean, if you, it wouldn't make any sense if you would join a band as a musician where you don't feel the music they're playing, and if you're not working hard for it, and like that, there would be no point in doing that, and because like I think if you're a musician, if you're a band, then I mean, of course, you might have fans and even a following and all that, but in the end, you always just play your music and you play it for yourself. That's kind of what it should be. Like I think so, at least. And so there's not much of a point in doing something you're not passionate about. I think so. What you described is definitely correct, I think. But as I said, I guess that's what being a band is about, after all. So
yeah, I take your point. It's just I think look, we being in Australia, of course, we get a lot of bands at the end of a tour, or it's a long way to travel. So I've seen some bands, mate, that look like they're phoning it in from on stage, and I don't blame them because we are a long way away and they might be hungover or they're sick or what have you. But actually, this is a good point to segue into the next question, because you are coming down here. So I'm going to do my bloody damnedest to try and be in the audience for this one here, because I say to a lot of artists that I'm going to go and watch a show, but I just can't with the two kids and everything else going on in life. It's always hard. But this Australian tour, mate, you must be looking forward to that, because you're certainly covering a lot of... You're playing basically all of the major cities, I can see.
Yeah, we definitely are looking forward a lot to come back. Definitely, we can't wait, and that's also, there's a lot to catch up. That's also why, like, we'll be playing a 2-hour set, because like, we haven't been to Australia since, I think it's more than 3 years, and we already have 2 albums out ever since. So besides playing, like, throughout all our discography, of course, we want to present you the songs of Evocation 2 live, but as well quite some songs from Ategnatos, the upcoming album.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely looking forward a lot to finally come back and share some new music with you guys.
Cool. Yeah, I was having a chat to Eric from Watain before they came down, and I just caught up with those guys, or watched them, sorry, I should say, on Saturday night, and they put on a tremendous show. But Eric was explaining to me that they couldn't bring all of the stuff down that they normally do, like the stage props and the, they didn't do any of the goat's blood and the pig's heads on spikes and stuff that you see on YouTube that they do across Europe and North America. So is that something similar for you guys? You've got to come down here with a bit more of a stripped back set, or stage design, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but I also have to say that, I mean, we've never been a band like, having much. Actually, we didn't have any stage props or something. We never had.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
No, actually not. I mean, we've always been more sort of this, how do you say, naked kind of band. Like, I mean, we just go on stage and it's basically about the music, and I mean, there's 9 people on stage already, so there's probably not even space for much stage props anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, what we did the last couple of years is to enhance our light show, but that also will be the case. I mean, Australia is not just around the corner, seen from Europe, and yeah, just logistically, I mean, we will do whatever we can, and our tour manager is already working on it to get as much as possible. But yeah, it will be somewhat downsized shows, but then again, I think that's also the cool thing, because
great,
it's music. It is about music. It's a fucking concert, so it's not a show. It's not, it's about music that's being played. And actually, we all actually really like it. This, it's there. I don't think there should be too much on stage that's kind of distracting from from the music, because the music is what it all is about. So nothing wrong with that.
Agreed. And I'm going to round back. I just want to single out a couple of cuts from Ategnatos. The one that I like, and it's been out for some time now, but of course he did a video for Rebirth that was released about a year ago or so. I remember hearing that and being really excited about. I thought it was a once-off single, actually, that you just put it out there to market. It wasn't going to be in an angle, but lo and behold, it's on Ategnatos. But that cut there reminds me of some of your earlier material, in that it really connects. This is my view, of course, but I think it connects with the average metalhead. So, the metalhead who might not get into a lot of the folk aspect of your music, but there's so much great riffage on that one there. So am I on point there that song was, say, written as a bit of a homage to some of your earlier material?
No, actually not. But I still definitely agree with you that it kind of does fit in pretty well with our earlier stuff. And but that was kind of a spontaneous development that we actually even haven't been aware of that much. It was it was kind of a cool, also weird but also funny experience that in November last year, I think it was, we released a 10 years anniversary edition of our album Slaunia.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and our record company asked me, for some bonus material for that special edition, and I was just, browsing through some old hard drives that I had lying around somewhere in the attic, for home recorded demo versions of the songs for that very album.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that was a pretty cool experience to go through this old material. It's like 11 years old, I think. To go through this material after all that time again, it was cool to hear. But it was actually then that I noticed. I was just listening to these old demos, and I just noticed that, damn, our new songs actually easily could also be from that album.
Yeah.
And I honestly just noticed there, actually. We haven't even been aware of the fact, but I mean, on one hand, the new songs, I think we definitely raised the level, like, musically. I mean, the guitar work on Ategnatos is on a pretty high level, skill wise, but still it's kind of some how do you say, like, back to the rootish a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm hearing that. Yeah, especially on the other cut, Worship, with the Lamb of God singer Randy Bly, I think his name is, surname. Yeah. So how did that relationship come about? Did you actually bring Randy in to record in the studio with you, or was it one of those things where he sent over his take from the States?
Sorry. Yeah, that was one of many spontaneous developments while creating Ategnatos, and we were just in a studio recording the album, actually, and I remember it was late night or early morning already, after a recording session, and I was sitting in the kitchen of the studio together with Jonas, our guitar player, and we were just talking about this intro of the song Worship. It has this rather long almost a bit cinematic, apocalyptic end time kind of intro. And we do have a voiceover artist and narration artist we're working with. It's a Scottish actor named Alexander Morton.
Okay.
And we have been working with him for at least 3 other albums already, and he's absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love his work. And yeah, he also recorded for our upcoming album. But that night we were just talking about the intro of Worship, and we both agreed that Alexander would actually not fit to the whole feeling, to the whole atmosphere of that song, because it is, Alexander has this old somber voice and this very archaic Highlander accent, and yeah, we just had the feeling that this wouldn't really match, and we ended up and we agreed that actually even some kind of an American accent would actually fit best. I don't exactly know why. Probably because it has this like pretty cinematic feeling to it or something. But yeah, so we started thinking about who we could ask, and then Jonas had the spontaneous idea of Randy, and yeah, we thought that he would actually have the perfect voice for that narration. And we're friends with Lamb of God since years, and so I just dropped him a message, but I had no idea what where they're at and what they're doing at this very moment. But then it was a pretty cool coincidence. Randy brought me back, yeah, sure, and that's quite convenient because we're actually touring in Europe at this very moment, and in a few days we're playing Zurich in Switzerland. And so yeah, that was a really practical coincidence. So a few days later, our bass player drove to the venue they played and picked him up and brought him to the studio, and he quickly recorded and cool. Yeah. And originally he was just supposed to speak that narration in the intro, but then also spontaneously he just really liked the song, and then he improvised some additional vocals in the chorus and stuff. So yeah, that was a pretty nice coincidence.
Sweet. What's he like in the studio? Is he a one take guy, or is it one of those things where he prefers to study a line and then move on?
No. He's working quite intuitively.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I do like that. I think if you overthink a lot of these things, particularly as a guest on an album, you lose the vibe. You lose the spirit of what the participation of a...
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, my minuscule amount of time spent in the studio doing, I'd never call it session work, but just turning up and playing, because being a bassist, you just get, here's your MP3 or CD as it was back in the day, learn the CD, turn up to the studio and learn it. And I always usually came back to the stuff that I had figured out first. Because if you overthink it, that means you get it more complicated. And especially being a bass player, it's very different from vocalists, of course. But people get the shits when bass players play too much. I found that you got more phone calls when you played hardly anything and just kept the root note really simple. But I guess that's the bass player's lot, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I mean, honestly, I do pretty much like that for the vocals. But for all our albums, actually, I usually finish the lyrics in the studio, and I usually never have time to rehearse or to even think about how I want to put the words rhythmically. So usually our vocals are all just improvised. So I just finish the lyrics, go to the recording room, and just do something, and what comes out then, that's what ends up in the album. And I think it's a good way to work, actually.
Have you ever sung or found that lyrics about pretty ordinary things like going shopping and filling up the car with petrol or diesel seep into your lyrics occasionally? Because you do what you're doing is the Celtic mythology and the pagan imagery and the European thing that you've got going on there, but you find that occasionally some ordinary stuff creeps in?
Not very much. I mean, I wouldn't write a song about fuel because I don't even have a driving license. So
there you go.
That probably wouldn't make that much sense. But no, but actually not. But then again, I mean, the things I write about actually do feel, ordinary.
They're ordinary
in
for
that
you.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel like something alien or special or something. It's something that I'm dealing with anyways in so many years, and something
Yeah.
that also is has its role in my private life, and so it doesn't feel that odd to write about such topics actually.
So do you develop a character? So do you step into the role of a character when you're developing lyrics, say, or is it really just your thoughts and feelings on a particular subject matter?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yes, I've never tried stepping into a character that much, but
Hmm.
no, it's basically just what yeah. I don't know what is important to me and what I feel and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool, cool. Hey, here's a good question for you, okay? Because we're living in a pretty interesting time politically, of course, because of the way social media works and people's access to having a voice on the internet. But things like Celtic mythology, pagan imagery, especially pan-European nationalism, some of this iconography, it's been targeted by some groups and journalists in the States and here in Australia, I might add as well. And it's meant, well, it hasn't meant that bands in Australia haven't been able to perform, but particularly in the States, Marduk and Destroy 666, they've had shows cancelled due to this so-called activism. Now, in my take on it, it's ridiculous, and it's the outcome of intersectional politics. But have you ever had fans or troublemakers or people causing a nuisance ask questions about the band's use of pagan and Celtic imagery, trying to infer that you've got any sort of white nationalism going on?
White nationalism.
You know what I mean, though, don't you? You know, because the
Yeah,
guys of
yeah.
Marduk have been
I
accused
know
of it.
exactly what you mean. Yes, we did have that, but to be fair, very, very seldom, actually.
Yeah.
But to be fair, that kind of people are a very good example of like how completely off the minds of people can actually be, and how little you can actually understand of what you're actually talking about. And like especially if you're talking about you know pre-Christian things and paganism and stuff, and at the same time you say some or think something like nationalism, like only that is the weirdest thing ever, and it's the biggest contradiction ever, because the concept of nation was invented much later than the pre-Christian European cultures, and it's actually in a clear contradiction to the basic thoughts of living together in a tribe. So even that makes it like super stupid to even think something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. It's just ridiculous at the moment, the way even some really underground bands that probably sell 5 cassettes, like bugger all basically. Some of these activists, well, they're not really journalists, but they have a journalist role, but they're stepping into the role of an activist through their journalism, and they're doing things like picking up on some comment that the Dragon Force lyricist put into a song in a previous band from 25 years ago, and they're asking them questions now about what their thoughts are on what they wrote 25 years ago, but from the perspective of 2019. And it's just, I won't name the websites that I know do it a fair bit. I think anybody, because I'll release this as a part of my podcast series if that's okay. But I think
Okay.
the listeners out there know which ones I'm talking about too. But it's really targeting bands for the sake of trying to gain some political currency in this fucked up environment that we're in at the moment, courtesy of intersectional politics. And it doesn't surprise me. It's ridiculous as I've maintained, but it doesn't surprise me that you've had idiots reach out to you and accuse or ask you questions. Are you proud of being white? Is that why you do all this rubbish? Is that why you're doing Celtic mythology and all the rest of it? Because they've got such a skewed view on everything that anything that, like, it's like what they did with Taylor Swift, where they hounded her so badly that she had to come out and say, yes, I support the Democrats or something in the States. It's got nothing to do with you or I because we don't live there, but they hounded her so badly that she had to come out and eventually take a side because a lot of the chatter just would not go away. So I think if you're prominent enough, if you don't take a side, and of course if you're pro-Trump, then you'll be hounded out of the role, basically. So you're almost forced to come out with this. Yeah, you're forced to come out with this view that is of the left, but it's fine if you naturally come up with these things yourself because you've thought about it. But people are being bullied into holding these leftist views, and it's crazy. It's a funny old world, and to see it affecting heavy metal is disastrous in my view.
Yeah, but can I tell you something here?
Go, yeah, you're on.
I mean, I think that's pretty intense, but also very interesting topic actually. And actually, just regarding our upcoming album, there's, I think I told you before that, Ategnatos is basically the result of our work for the lyrics for that album, and the album basically contemplates Celtic mythology, like put in simple words. But what we did was to contemplate these ancient parables and allegories that have been written down hardly 2,500 years ago to tell people something important. And we have been contemplating these parables, not just like on a historical, scientific level, but actually we did so as individuals for ourselves. And that was a pretty intense experience, actually. It became almost some kind of a spiritual experience somehow.
Yeah.
And the thing that struck my mind is, or I can speak for all of us. I mean, it was really crazy to see like how actual and how valid these ancient words still are, actually. And there's a cycle of 2 songs on the album. It's the songs "The Slumber" and the song "Worship." They kind of belong together. They deal with the same etiological tale, and this tale it's among the oldest Celtic fragments we still know about today, and it's probably, we don't know exactly how old it is when it was written down, but it's probably more than 2,500 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
And so today we do not know what happened back then. We didn't know what the situation was. All we have today is this story, actually. But the story basically tells about the psychological mechanisms that are going on in the human brain when like a strong leader arises.
Okay.
And that was pretty crazy to see. And it basically tells what happens if this dictator-like person arises. And what actually does happen is that most of the people just bow their heads and accept their yoke and bow to the fucking dictatorship, even though it makes their own lives miserable. They still bow to it because of their own weakness or fear or whatever it was. And at the same time, the story also kind of shows up what will lead you out of this. And the story goes that, the people being suppressed by this cruel dictator, they kind of got deliberated by a Celtic god, which of course was also like was symbolic. He was a symbolic character in that story. And the interesting thing is that the gods that came out from the other worlds to liberate the people, it wasn't like this muscle-packed hero warrior kind of god like Hercules from Greek mythology or something like that. No, it was the god Ategnatos, who is, like, according to his iconography, who would be the opposite that you would think of would be able to fight against dictators, because he's usually depicted as this very fragile old man with charred skin and, bald and, completely rugged. So you might wonder, like, why exactly was it this god? And that's the interesting fact, because in Celtic mythology, this god, Ategnatos, simply represents the experience that comes with the age. It represents the sharpened mind, the sharpened intellect. And that I found so interesting, because it was written down like more than 2,500 years ago. And it basically told people, like, okay, you have like this super strong politician, but just to use their fucking minds.
Yeah.
That's basically the core of the message. The crazy thing, just on this last tour we had in South America, we experienced a similar thing, like with this public bashing kind of things. It was we had trouble with one of the South American promoters, and he canceled some shows. And
oh, really?
Actually, kind of it was a stupid story, but like after that, basically to save his own head, he just went on the internet and published on social media. He published some complete bullshit stories, and like inverted the facts, and wrote that we were like canceling shows, and
he's a liar. In other words, he was lying about
that we were being arrogant rockstar assholes and blah blah blah, all that kind of shit. And what happened then was really astonishing in a way. I mean, it was completely shitty for us, but it was also crazy to see, because like even though we one day later we also like published a statement just like putting the facts right and saying like this is not true, and but it didn't help anymore. People were just like literally like hungry wolves. They just jumped on what he wrote, and we had this huge, enormous shitstorm going on, like, and our social media were just like full of haters. It was crazy, and that just struck me so much, because we were just dealing like with this topic of this old Celtic story that I was talking about before, and it just like really almost kind of scared me what is going on, because with what you just said, with this all this internet bashing that is absolutely possible today, we actually kind of even train this very behavior. I mean, we by this behavior on social medias, we basically, as people, as societies, we train to just get some so-called information and just believe them without even questioning without even researching, and we just follow and jump on it. It's just okay. It's a bit a drastic thing to say, but it's like we train to be the Germans of those centuries back, when just a guy arises and tells you, okay, we're not doing good, and this is because of the Jews. And then what do? We just jump on it, believe it, and try and fight against the Jews, and kill them all, and stuff like that. And by this crazy social media thing that's going on today, we even train to be people like this, and that's what really scared me.
I agree, and what you raised there, one of your final points there. Okay, so if you question any of these authoritarian narrative, because that's really what it is. It's an authoritarian narrative. That means you're the other, so you're the opposite. So therefore, you are what they are targeting. And as Joe Rogan has said, the eye of Sauron is on you, as you guys felt, and you experience all of this hate. And it's like there's no pathway to redemption after that either. So you are what they say you are, regardless of what you truly are as a person and what your intentions are and even what your outcomes are. You are what they say you are, because that's the authoritarian mindset. And these Twitter mobs, I hate being on Twitter, actually. I can't stand it. It's just people with anonymous profiles. I've made a specific point of never posting anything that could be construed as negative. So no chit-chat, bullshit, no responses to things trying to correct anybody. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, whether they're right or wrong. I simply don't have a view on that. But Twitter, and to a lesser extent Facebook, but Twitter, and let's just focus on Twitter, people seem to think that they can say whatever the hell that they want. And they round on people and they say, oh, I hope your kids die, and I hope this and that, and just awful things that you would never say to somebody's face. Well, I hope people would never say to their face. And this is the problem that the internet gives people, is this anonymity. And that's where I think this authoritarian mindset has come from, because of the anonymity of it. And you can create this character on the internet, which is like just an avatar thing. Who knows what the hell people are thinking? But then they go after wonderful artists and musicians like you guys for the reasons that you've stated, without knowing any of the facts. They just want to bash you.
Yeah.
What do you do, mate? What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a crazy old world, mate, but I think that's why musicians and artists such as yourself are so important, because you give people an outlet. And without musicians and this excellent album, Ategnatos. Without that, I think people's lives are diminished. And I truly mean that. I'm not just saying that to you because we're talking about this, but people need music and they need high quality music because it gives them an outlet. And you've also just, gosh, you spoke very eloquently there. So you were talking about in history. So you go back to 2000 or thereabouts. So I think it's 2,500 years ago or so, and read some of these things that sound like as though they could be right now in 2019 in our society now. But of course, they happened at a very different time in a very different society with very different people. But the outcomes are more or less the same. A strong leader comes along, and we're talking these days about the Twitter mob being the leader, or the internet, the faceless people on the internet being that leader. So it's almost metastatized into multiple beings, but they're carrying the same voice. It's no longer coming from one person like Hitler. It's coming from multiple people, and people jump on top of this. And I think it all just comes down to facts. Get your facts straight. If you don't know what the facts are, don't have a go at somebody. And even if you do have the facts, maybe restrained. I mean, we've got an issue here in Australia at the moment which affects the whole world. I'm a Catholic, and Cardinal George Pell has been convicted of pedophilia. Now, he was the Vatican's third. He was third in the Vatican, so behind, not Ratzinger, God, who's in there these days? Pope Francis. Behind Pope, so third behind Pope Francis. So no doubt there would have been whole periods of time where he would have been running the Vatican, such as the nature of the way that it's structured. But mate, I think he's going to go to jail for pedophilia. So we're living in a very interesting time where there are some truths coming out and some people and institutions are being held accountable. But at the same time, you've got these rabid Twitter mobs going after people for, well, reasons that they feel are valid but aren't really valid.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, what do we do, mate? We could solve the world, you and I. Solve the world's problems, you and I reckon, if we're given enough time and a few pints.
Very good.
Cool. I better let you go because you got the next one in about 5 minutes, haven't you?
In 5 minutes, that's correct, yes.
Yeah. Well, again, congratulations on doing what you're doing. Long may you continue to do what you do, and I will do everything I can to be in the crowd in May when you come down.
Thank you so much.
Lovely work, mate. All right, no worries.
Of course. So thank you so much for the interview, and have a good evening.
Thank you, brother. No worries at all. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye. You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that interview subject featured Chrigel Glanzman, the fella at the centre of Swiss folk metal outfit Eluveitie. Thank you so much for listening.